Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr for Tom and Emergency Broadcast Podcast.
Normally, when we do an emergency podcast, it is because Michigan has done something extremely hilarious. This one, not as amusing, probably to Ohio State fans. Got some bad news on Friday. Sometimes they come up with nicknames for days when bad news comes out. I suggest that we call this day Black Friday for the bad news that came out. What do you think?
That's not bad. And I'm sure anybody listening to this knows now that Ryan Day, Ohio State head coach, has tested positive for the coronavirus and will not make the Illinois trip, which is the Illinois game is still at this point going to happen. The amazing thing is they're going to do more. They're going to test the team with the PCR tests, which take longer but are much more accurate today, because they did a round of testing this morning, and then they'll do this PCR testing out of an abundance of caution, and then tomorrow morning they will travel day of game to Illinois. And I know people originally they were going to leave at like 9 p.m. tonight, and people were like, "That's so late." Well, friends, I can tell you of a later time to travel, and that is the morning of the game that is scheduled to kick off in the actual morning, 11 in the morning, at the site of the game in Illinois. And so that's where we stand right now. Larry Johnson will take over as the acting head coach, and we'll get to see him do that. The Big Ten protocol for coaches is 10 days of isolation. It's not the whole 21-day thing, because remember that the third week of those 21 days is about the heart tests and the reacclimation period of getting back into physical shape for the players. So there's none of that for the coaches, and that's where we are right now, Tom. Pretty big news for a holiday weekend that has kind of been like no other, because this has been brewing over the past few days.
Yeah, we have kind of both kind of heard these rumblings that there's some positive tests. Okay, maybe some more positive tests. You start hearing hey, there may be even more. And once you get past a couple, it's like, okay, how bad is this? How far has this gone? And it is not a difficult thing. Once it gets from past 2 to 4 to more than 5 or so, it's like, okay, well, is this really it? Have they really caught all of these? You're past the point where you can sort of, when it's 1 or 2, you think, okay, maybe it's a false positive. When it's like, okay, there's 6, it's like, well, okay, maybe some of them are false positives, but if it's 6 or 8 or 10 or whatever the number ends up being, what are the odds that all of them are false positives? Like, maybe unless you got a real bad batch of tests, like probably not. So, and then it just becomes all about limiting the damage, containing the spread as best you can. And they took some additional steps this week. And we talked on the last show that they have not run full practices this week. They've been kind of going, doing walkthroughs, and they're still sort of working on it, but they're not doing like full contact practices by any means. So they're trying to keep it under, kind of split the baby, basically, where you're not completely shutting down so you're trying to stay ready for the game, but also you're trying to keep everyone as safe as possible. And, that's, as I think we have seen in all things this year in life, that is not always a super easy dance to do.
Yeah, and we saw some pictures of their Thanksgiving meal inside the practice facility, and even they're spaced out all over the field and having food served to them rather than getting it themselves. And because we know like buffets are a thing of the past at this point. You can't go and start serving yourself, and then somebody comes right behind you and does the same thing. So they are taking precautions, and it is still you're still getting these positive tests, and it's not a lot of tests. And Ohio State's release said that they had a nearly 0% positivity rate since August 11th, and then this week things just started happening. And then comes in the contact tracing, where this is where the daily testing helps, because you don't have to go back so far. You only have to retrace so many steps because of the daily testing. And So that was also a process today. And we can't really get into a ton of the rumors or speculation or information just because it's it's not what we're going to do here. But it's a situation that Ryan Day has spoken about in the past, and he said, if I do get it, or not so flippantly, if we have a plan in place, if I get it, and that plan is Larry Johnson. In terms of how Ryan Day is feeling, this is what Gene Smith said in a release from OSU. I have spoken with Coach Day, and he is doing well physically. I feel terrible for Coach and for the members of the program who have been diagnosed with the positive test. Coach Day and his team have been true leaders in handling things so well throughout this pandemic. Our team wants to play this game, and we're going to do everything we can to help make this happen. All of the decisions on the welfare of our student athletes and staff members will continue to be guided by our medical staff. And we know Ryan Day wants his team to play. The team wants to play, and there's no way he was going to be the one that was to say, let's pull the plug on this, guys. Guys, I don't think we should do this. He's the one saying, go on without me and get this done. And so that's where they will be. And then, Larry Johnson takes control, Tom.
Yeah. And, this is obviously not the point of this whole show. And this is obviously not the way you would want this to happen. But there are two pieces of good news as of right now when we're recording at 4:15 on Friday afternoon. One is the game is still on track to happen as of this moment. And number two, it's kind of cool that Larry Johnson's going to be the first African-American head coach in Ohio State football history. And again, this is not the way you would want that to happen. This is not the way that I'm sure Larry Johnson would have wanted that to happen. But, that is kind of a cool little historical footnote here. And, Larry Johnson is someone who is as respected a person as anyone in college football. I mean, he is respected as an unbelievable teacher, an unbelievable role model as a person. But just, he's just, every time we talk to him, it's just like, you just see why everyone just absolutely loves him. And assuming there's a game and assuming he does a post-game press conference, like, enjoy Larry Johnson's post-game press conference after the game on Saturday. It is just like this warm grandfatherly figure who you just want to sit down and just have him just tell you, things are going to be all right. Like he is just this wonderful, reassuring voice. And he's someone who I think probably when he was younger had aspirations of being a head coach. And, he did not get promoted at Penn State. And that was one of the reasons he left for Ohio State. And, this is just kind of a cool opportunity for him. I mean, just like Ryan Day probably did not want his first head coaching game to be in the shadow of Urban Meyer's whole 2018 thing. I'm sure Larry Johnson would not have wanted to be the head coach in this context, but now that he is, like, that's kind of cool.
Well, and Larry Johnson was the interim head coach at Penn State when Bill O'Brien left. That didn't last long, of course, and he came to Ohio State, and the rest is basically history. But he has been the assistant head coach, I think, since he was hired back in 2014. And so he's had different duties, and we'll see how that goes. I think everybody expects things to go well. Kevin Wilson now is likely going to be the sole play caller who helps him out. We'll see. I don't know how much help he needs. Obviously, he'll need help from upstairs where he will also be, I guess. And I don't know, Tom, maybe he doesn't need help. He's been an outstanding play caller for much of his career. He's shared those duties and then handed the keys over basically to Ryan Day as the head coach. And now, Tom, we finally get to see what a Kevin Wilson offense will be at Ohio State without Ryan Day holding him back. But in seriousness, like the ability to lose your play caller and then in Ryan Day and then go, I guess we have to have Kevin Wilson do it. There are a lot worse things that could have happened to your play calling duties than to have them go to Kevin Wilson, who is one of the best in the business.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to Kevin Wilson at Oklahoma and Kevin Wilson at Northwestern, and that's like 20 years ago, and he was already doing incredible stuff then. And I mean, I think one of the big points that needs to be made here is, yes, Ryan Day is not going to be there on the headsets on Saturday, and I'm sure Ryan Day is going to be going nuts, but by the time you get to Friday, like the game plan's in, they've gone through, they've broken down every possible frame of film that they would need to break down. And so this is not something that Ryan Day has had no input on this week. Ryan Day has been a part of this conversation all week long. This is, Kevin Wilson will end up calling the plays, but Ryan, and I'm sure in the coming weeks, even if Ryan Day is not in the facility, Ryan Day will have an extreme level of input on the game plan for next weekend as well against Michigan State. So, this may not be quite as big a deal as it seems. I mean, it's still a big deal. This is still something that will impact them a little bit, but on the whole, like this could be more of a this could be much more of a disaster than it probably will be tomorrow.
Yeah, and you almost feel like, because there will be players missing, and as I said, we won't go into those names, but in Ohio State mentioned that in their release as well, that they can confirm an increased number of positive tests this week, and depending on who those players are, that's some key pieces of the team that are making plays on the field. You know how coaches say, well, we don't block, we don't tackle. These are guys who block and tackle who may not be there. And so that's going to be something to watch. It is important to note that even with this increased I don't even want to call it outbreak, increased number of positivities or positives, that Ohio State said they did not reach the Big Ten's mandate or the protocol numbers, the 7.5% of the total population, the 5% of the players, or both of them, rather, the red, to be forced to cancel this game, which I guess is certainly good. And you look back at Minnesota having 23 players out a couple weeks ago, and maybe some coaches, and so that gives you an idea of how many players you can still not have and play. And from everything we've been told, Ohio State is not near those numbers, but they're not near them today. But you hold your breath every single day that the numbers won't go up. And we know there were some numbers hit on Wednesday, fewer numbers on Thursday, and then maybe a couple more on Friday. So it's like the numbers are seemingly going down from what we've been told, and you do everything you can to limit that spread, obviously. But the fact that they're still going through with this lets you know that the medical professionals believe, okay, we've done everything we can to contain this, short of putting everybody in bubbles, which you can't really do. And just, you do have to go out and live and play. And that's why you're here. And if you've just decided, well, the sheer fact that this is possible to get, we better just not do it. We've already decided we're going to do it. We've decided that we're going to play football, and there is a little bit of risk, but it's so difficult because we're talking before the show, like, where do you get this? How do you give it, like, how does this happen when you take as many precautions? But it just lets you know how easy it is to happen, which is why there have to be so many precautions.
Yeah, and they're taking more precautions before they leave. I mean, they're doing a round of PCR testing, as we mentioned, on Friday afternoon, to make sure that everyone on the trip is confirmed negative before they get on an airplane. Because, if they can get this game played, and, at this point, like, if they win this game 17-10, like, I think if you are worried about the fact that they win this game 17-10, like, nope. We're not doing that this year. Nope. You take your win, you smile, and you say, thank you, sir. See you next week. That's what this is at this point. If they get the game in, they get their win, then it's like, okay, everyone takes a deep breath. And now you got to make sure that you don't have a problem for next week, and you can get the Michigan State game in too, and that this does not continue to grow. Because, I mean, as you mentioned, like, you kind of got a handful of tests on Wednesday in this, like, slow trickle more. This has not been like this, like, real dramatic upward curve like you've seen in other places. So that's good news. I mean, that is obviously something that you would be you should be happy to see that this has not taken a dramatically terrible turn. It's not great news, but this is not the worst possible news you could have. So, if they get through this round of PCR tests on Friday night and everyone is okay and able to get on that airplane Saturday morning for Illinois and they can get that game in, and maybe you've kind of nipped it in the bud, and I'm sure they are setting off Lysol bombs all over that Woody Hayes facility today. And I mean, as much as they can do to ensure that there is absolutely no more spread beyond whoever is isolated right now, and players who are roommates with players who might have tested positive, like I'm sure they're getting the stink eye from everyone and making sure everything is as clean as it possibly can, and you're isolating as best you can. But I mean, this is not a fantastic situation, but this could be so much worse. And I think we were both had some indication that this was coming. And the question was, okay, are they going to be able to play the game or not? Because the rules are all, the rules in terms of like what really constitutes red versus red orange, and when you can play and when you can't play. Because there have been a bunch of teams that have just like chosen not to play. You knew Ohio State was not going to choose not to play, but the question was like, at what point are they going to not be allowed to play? And to see in the official release, like they still do not meet the threshold for positive tests, so they can play like that. I mean, this is not great news, but that is still good news for Ohio State.
It would be nice to know what that threshold is, how close a team is to it. I realize we're never going to get that, and that's something that I believe is only available to the Big Ten programs themselves and the Big Ten itself, where they have a dashboard that they go to see where things are. And in that release, it says that Illinois is being kept abreast of the situation and will no doubt continue to prepare for a game as if it is going to happen, just as Ohio State will. But, we talk about this being a year unlike any other. I wonder when the last time, I guess it would be high school, that these guys traveled the day of a game, and so there, I mean, you have to go back to that. I wouldn't have been shocked if they drove and like got on buses, just because.
Yeah, I mean, the problem there though is it's not that the airplane is bad for you. It's the time in the confined space, and in a bus you got more time on that confined space. That's the problem with that.
And a plane is just a bus in the air.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just a really tough year for a lot of guys, for everybody, and you figure out how to best handle it that day. And that's what Ohio State is doing right now. Ryan Day is home, and things go on without him, which seems, strange as heck. And we'll see how this game gets played. If it gets played, hopefully it gets played. It should get played. It is scheduled to be played. And then, and really, as things just continue to move, how many other coaches have we seen around the country? They're out, and then what time the world continues to turn, and football continues to happen, and then eventually that coach comes back, and it's like, well, that was just part of 2020, man.
And Ryan Day is not the only like major big name college football coach to have COVID this week. Nick Saban is out. Nick Saban's missing the Iron Bowl this week. Like this is the way of the world right now, and I think the only coaches who are feeling remotely good about the fact that they are definitely not going to get it again are the guys who had it semi-recently. I mean, that's if you have not had it yet, and you're just anytime you're around anyone, like it's everything is a landmine this year, and it's just a matter of can you avoid it? And Ryan Day, we've talked before, Ryan, about the extent of the precautions that Ryan Day is taking in terms of not, trying to keep himself as safe as humanly possible, and taking, I think we all are making changes to our day-to-day routines. Like Ryan Day was like way beyond that. And, and here he is, he's gotten it. He was taking what I think people would say were extreme precautions to try and stay safe and keep himself safe and protect the people around him. And, and now he's in that spot. And so it is a not a great situation, but if he's back in 10, go through that 10-day isolation, get test out of it, be okay, and be back for the Michigan game. That's I think he may take a little extra joy in being back on the sidelines for the Michigan game, because I bet the next couple weekends trying to watch your own team play on TV, like that has to be. I mean, do you remember Urban Meyer talking about like what that was like to have to watch your own team on TV? Like that does not sound like fun.
Yeah, and when he finally does return, it will be assuming it would be Michigan week. And so you talk to them about what was it like watching, and then also, hey, we've got to also talk about Michigan. But yeah, that's there's so many things to say about this year, and not a lot of them are good. that's basically just the best way to sum up the 2020, which is almost done, but it will continue into 2021 just because of the stink.
Things that are positive in 2020, almost over. There you go. There's that.
That's about it. Anything else, Tom? I think we've pretty much covered this. We obviously had to do an emergency podcast just to get our thoughts out there, and obviously our thoughts do go to Ryan Day and everybody else, because like I said, it's not just him. There's other members of the program that have been testing positive this week, and so far there's no word of any hospitalizations or anything like that. So you want to see everybody pull through, because they've all been fighting for this for the season and to get to play. And Ryan Day said the whole thing they've been doing all season is assume everybody you come into contact with has COVID. That's in the practice facility. That's wherever you go. Just assume that you're coming into contact with somebody who has COVID, and then use that to steer how you interact with people. And it still gets you. And here we are, Tom.
And I just looked at Twitter real quickly just to see if anything else had happened. Urban Meyer's name was trending. I was like, oh, this could be any number of things. And you click on it, and a lot of it related to the fact that Texas just lost to Iowa State. One of the people who you should not pay any attention to on Twitter telling you that Gene Smith is currently in conversations with Urban Meyer about being the interim coach against Michigan State. Not sure I put a lot of stock in that one, but it's on Twitter.
Person?
So is it what?
Is it a boat person?
It is not, but it is in the same milieu as the boat person. Okay. So yes, yeah, again, it's 2020. Never say never, but I would not put personally a ton of stock in that.
Should we call it the Twitter Navy?
We'll workshop that one.
All right. That will do it for this emergency episode. The plan is then to come back Saturday morning, pregame show, and talk about the game that is going to happen. And then after that game happens, we'll do our instant reaction podcast and let you know what we saw, what we thought, everything that was said after the game from head coach Larry Johnson and his players. So certainly going to be an interesting afternoon one way or the other. I hope it is more interesting than not, and made more interesting by a football game. And that's my hope, Tom. Are you hopeful?
I mean, there is still potentially a football game to watch tomorrow. So yes, that is definitely a source of potential good news and hope. And we will have a pregame show. We'll have a postgame show, assuming there is a game. That's just heard back from Ohio State. There is no conversation right now about potentially pushing that kickoff time back. So we had wondered, if they're flying over a day of game, could they push that back? No. Sounds like the answer is no. So that's so it sounds like we'll have a pregame show sometime. I don't know, 10 o'clock tomorrow, something like that.
Ish, yeah.
Ish, yeah. So we'll
see.
Yeah, we are expecting the Ohio State what is normally released on Friday, the availability report for players. We will probably wait till that comes out. That's supposed to be out around 10 a.m. tomorrow. So once that's out, we'll get that posted and then do our pregame show at that point. So we'll have that. Follow us on Twitter. We'll put it on the board at Buckeye Scoop. You can watch that there. Tony, I'm thinking there's going to be a lot to talk about. There's probably some things that we maybe know we're already going to talk about.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to be real interested to see what might be on that availability report, because I think there's going to be some conversations that will be some interesting breakdowns tomorrow morning.
Yes, there will be some names, and there will be many of what does this mean? What do they do now? And we'll get into it later because if we get into it now, it wouldn't be good. So we'll call it a day. Thank you all for listening. Sorry we had to do this, but we had to do it. We will talk to you on Saturday about football being played. Hopefully. Thank you guys. Talk to you later.